Now we're going to go to Idaho and to Marissa. Hi, Marissa. How may we help you?
Yes, I have, well, my husband has been seeing someone else since about before Thanksgiving,
Hmm.
and we've been pretty private about everything. And we never said we weren't going to talk about it to a family or that we weren't going to talk about it to family. But yesterday, the other woman decided to tag him on Facebook with photos of them together when they were out this weekend. So now I'm trying to figure out how to address this with people when they do call me, which I've had a few concern calls. But ultimately, how do I address this with my children? I've kind of just told them Daddy has been on a chance to find himself. I asked for separation on Christmas for 2 weeks, just to give him a chance to get out of the valley because he was back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then he didn't come back after that 2 weeks. He chose not to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so
So
where is he
since
living
then,
now?
the kids-
Is he living with her?
He's living with her, as
Okay.
far as I know. At one point, he said he couldn't be with her at her house because of her kids, but I feel that's where he's at.
Okay. And how old are your kids?
9 and 12.
Okay. And relatively mature, 9 and 12? I mean, they can comprehend all these things that
My
are going
son,
on?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, he wants to know what's going on, but I'm fearful of how he may react to his father, and that also goes along with my son has to go to regular PT appointments, and usually I make those so that my husband can take him because on his days off, because I work weekends, so it's harder for me to take him during the week. But should I ask him and say, hey, can you still make these appointments, or do you want me to stop making them on your days off? Because he has one coming up this Friday, and I don't know if he's going to take him or not. I don't know if I should just take him to work with me, or
Is your husband trying to avoid your children at this point?
He hasn't really asked about them. He seems to be really in it with this other woman and her family, which has one child similar age, and the other ones are older.
Right. The sad thing is, Kimberly,
and I don't know if it's limerence, but it's something.
Yeah. The sad thing is, and Kimberly and I have both seen this several times, that it's not unusual that a man particularly, it can happen with women as well, but it seems to happen more often with men, that when they get involved with a woman with children, they tend to neglect their own children and focus on the other woman's children. We've seen that so many times. And it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Here's my suggestion, and then we'll see what the psychologist here says. She's a psychologist. I study sexology and those kinds of things, marital satisfaction. I'm a researcher. She's a psychologist. My recommendation would be this. Call him and say, since she has posted this on social media, there are many people who now know about it, including our children. And our son's asking lots of questions, and he has a right to know. Now, this is what I recommend you do. You do what you think is best, but this is my recommendation. You say, I need you to come to the house, and we're going to sit down with the kids, and we're going to tell them together what you're doing. You need to tell them where you are, where you're living, and what you're doing. Tell them the truth. And you don't need to give gory details, but you need to tell them the truth. Now, I'm going to be there to make sure that what you tell them actually is true. And so if they look at me in the course of that and say, Mom, how do you feel about that? I will also tell the truth. I'll tell them I'm hurt, and I hope that you work through that Dad works through things, and that Dad can come back home. Do not assure him up front. If when you come and do this, and the kids deserve this, they deserve you being there for this. And when you do it, I promise you, I will not throw you under the bus. I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to say terrible things about you in front of your children. I'm not going to say terrible things about you even after you leave, because I know that you're their dad, and I'm not going to try to destroy the relationship you have with them, and I'm going to make that commitment, that promise to you. But you really, really need to come tell them this. They deserve it. I'm going to be there. Tell them the truth. I'll tell them the truth, but I won't throw you under the bus. If he says, no, I don't know if I want to do that, you say, then if you don't, I will. But I'd rather you be there because that's what they deserve. But if you don't come, I will. So if you want to be represented where you feel that the kids really know what's going on and really understand you, then you need to be there. And then if you do that, you give a deadline. Like it's going to happen by Wednesday week or something like that. Now, if he comes, good. But you've got to live up to that promise. You can't throw him under the bus. You can't attack him in front of the kids. As a matter of fact, it's never going to benefit your children for you to attack him at all, but you don't sound like the kind of person who would do that anyway. If he doesn't come, you really need to follow through. Because I'll guarantee you, once it's out there in public, there are other people that are going to be telling your kids all about it. And therefore, you don't need to wait very long. You really don't need to wait very long at all. I wouldn't even wait till Wednesday week. I'd make it happen this week if it were I. Your choice, but that's what I would do if I were I. Because they're going to be hearing from other friends, other people, and believe it or not, the way this world works, there's even going to be probably an adult or two that'll run into your kids somewhere and say, oh, I saw that your dad's living with somebody else. They need to be equipped for that. Now, they're going to have questions of Dad, they're going to have questions of you, and if you have this meeting, whether he's there or not, they're going to have questions afterwards. I love what you said earlier. Dad's trying to find himself. I love that. You're not throwing him away. You're not saying he's evil, terrible thing. But at the same time, you're not justifying what he's doing either. And I think that's a very good. Kimberly, what do you need to add to that? What did I not say that should be said there?
No, all of that is great. The question, one of the questions that Marissa had said was, what do I do about the physical therapy appointment, right? He typically would do this. I would go forward business as usual until I knew otherwise.
Right.
So I would assume he's been doing this. I'm gonna ask him if he is going to continue and make plans that way, because otherwise you're assuming his part of it, which you don't need to do right now. You have no clue that part of it. So, and it's a great reason to reach out. When we talk about smart contact, that's a perfect example of, hey, he has and I would probably just assume it, saying, hey, he has a physical therapy appointment on Friday.
Right.
And assume the close. Right. Assume that it's going to happen, and let it happen.
I would as well. I would do the same thing.
That's how I would handle it.
Because if he's gravitating more toward the other kids, I wouldn't give him any out for his own kids unless he takes that
exactly.
out. Okay. And as to the other people that call you, you do what you think is best, but understand that if you say things that are eventually going to go to the community and get back to your husband, he's going to feel that you're throwing him under the bus, that you're poisoning the well. And so if it were what I would do when these other people call is I'd say, yes, we're going through a difficulty right now. Thank you for understanding. And I wouldn't tell them any more about that.
You don't have to justify anything.
No, you do not.
You don't.
You do not. Okay.